Have you ever just paused and really thought about the incredible variety of life on our planet? I mean, from the tiniest invisible bacteria to the giant blue whales, it's just mind-boggling, right? So how in the world do scientists make any sense of it all? Well, they came up with a pretty brilliant system to bring some order to all this beautiful chaos, and that's exactly what we're going to break down today.
You can imagine the huge problem for biologists, right? How do you create a logical system that can file away every single living thing? It's kind of like being the librarian for the entire planet. A massive, massive job.
And what a library it is. So far, we've managed to identify and name over 1.5 million different species. But here's the crazy part. Scientists think there are millions, maybe even tens of millions more that we haven't even found yet. The sheer scale of this is just wow.
To put it another way, imagine trying to shop in a grocery store where nothing is organized. You know, the milk is next to the motor oil, the cereal is in the freezer with the ice cream. It would be a total nightmare. That's what biology would be like without a classification system. A good system puts things into logical groups so we can understand not just what they are, but how they're all related.
So, how did we get the system we use today? Well, it didn't just appear out of thin air. It was a scientific quest, really, an evolution of ideas that unfolded over centuries as our knowledge and our tools got a whole lot better.
The first big attempt to organize everything came from a guy who's basically the father of modern taxonomy, Carolus Linnaeus. Way back in the 18th century, he looked at the world and basically divided it into two big buckets. Things that moved, which he called Animalia, and things that didn't, which he called Plantae. You know, it was simple, it was elegant, and for a while it actually worked pretty well.
But then a little thing called the microscope came along, and all of a sudden, we discovered this hidden world of tiny, single-celled organisms that just didn't fit into either the plant or animal box. As this quote points out, the two-kingdom system had some major blind spots. It couldn't tell the difference between simple and complex cells or between creatures that make their own food and those that have to eat. The system was starting to crack. And this timeline right here, it really lays out the whole journey for us. We start with Linnaeus and his two kingdoms in the 1700s. Then, bam, a huge leap forward in 1969 with Robert Whittaker's 5 kingdoms. And it didn't even stop there. We see another refinement in 1977 with Carl Woese. Science is always updating its map of life.
Let's zero in on that game-changing moment in 1969. An American ecologist named Robert Whittaker took a look at all this new evidence and proposed a system that would totally change biology. He gave us a brand new 5-part map of the living world.
So what was his secret sauce? What made his system so much better? Well, Whittaker used 3 really smart criteria. First, he looked at cell structure. Are the cells simple prokaryotes without a nucleus, or are they complex eukaryotes with one? Second, body structure. Is the organism made of just one cell or many? And third, how does it get its food? Is it an autotroph making its own food or a heterotroph that has to consume other things to live?
Using those 3 questions, Whittaker built his 5 kingdoms. So, what do you say? Let's take a quick tour and meet the residents of each one. And here they are in all their glory. Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. This diagram is going to be our roadmap for the next few minutes. Let's start with the simplest forms of life and work our way up. Okay, so our tour starts with some of the absolute pioneers of life on Earth. We're talking about Kingdom Monera, which includes all the bacteria. And on the right, we've got a mushroom, representing Kingdom Fungi. Let's start with Monera.
So, what makes something a moneran? Well, they're all single-celled. And this is the really big one. They are prokaryotes. That means their cells are super simple, and they don't have a nucleus to keep their DNA in. They are the only kingdom in this whole system that is prokaryotic.
Next up, we've got Protista, and this is a huge leap forward, evolutionarily speaking. Protists are still mostly single-celled, but, and it's a big but, they're eukaryotes. Their cells have a proper nucleus and all sorts of other complex machinery inside. It's kind of famous for being a biological junk drawer, basically a catch-all group for any eukaryote that isn't a fungus, a plant, or an animal. All right, on to Kingdom Fungi. Now, for a long time, people just lumped fungi in with plants. But Whittaker saw they were totally different. They're multicellular eukaryotes, sure, but their cell walls are made of something called chitin, not cellulose like plants. And the biggest difference? They don't do photosynthesis. They're heterotrophs that absorb nutrients from whatever they're growing on.
And that brings us to the 2 kingdoms we all know and love. Plantae, the plants, and Animalia, the animals.
Plants are, you guessed it, multicellular eukaryotes. They have those rigid cell walls made of cellulose. But their whole deal, their claim to fame, is that they're autotrophs. They create their own food through the absolute magic of photosynthesis.
And then there's us, Kingdom Animalia. We're also multicellular eukaryotes, but unlike plants, we don't have cell walls, which is what allows for all of our movement. And we're heterotrophs, who have to go out and ingest our food. We eat things, rather than just absorbing nutrients like fungi do. Okay, take a second and look at this table. It's awesome because it pulls everything we've just talked about together so clearly. You can really see Whittaker's criteria at work here. See that cell type column? Only Monera are prokaryotic. Everyone else? Eukaryotic. Now slide over to mode of nutrition. Only Plantae are true autotrophs, while fungi and Animalia are completely heterotrophic. It's just a really logical, clean system that makes sense of so much diversity.
For decades, Whittaker's 5 kingdoms were the gold standard. This was the way biology was taught. But science never ever stands still, and as our tools got sharper, scientists started to find a few cracks in this very elegant system.
So, was that it? Was the puzzle of life completely solved? The answer, as you can probably guess, was a big no. Whittaker's system was a massive improvement, but it wasn't the final chapter in the story.
Here were some of the biggest issues that started to pop up. First off, where do you put viruses? They aren't even cells, so they don't have a home in any of the 5 kingdoms. And that Protista junk drawer? It was becoming clear it was just too diverse, a jumble of things that weren't really all that related. The system was showing its age.
But the biggest challenge of all, the one that would really shake things up, came from the kingdom that seemed the simplest. New technology was about to uncover a secret that was hidden deep inside the world of bacteria.
And this is where the story gets really, really cool. The rise of genetic analysis gave scientists this incredibly powerful new tool. They could now look past physical appearances and read the deepest evolutionary history, written right there in an organism's DNA. So in the 1970s, a scientist named Carl Woese was studying the genetics of these simple prokaryotes, and he found something that just blew the doors off of biology. He discovered that the organisms we'd all just lumped together in Kingdom Monera were actually 2 fundamentally different groups of life. They were as different from each other as we are from bacteria. He named these 2 groups bacteria and archaea.
This was such a massive discovery that it actually required a whole new level of classification, a level above kingdom, called a domain. And that's the 3-domain system we use today. It shows us that life's first big split was into 3 groups. The ancient archaea, many of which live in extreme places like boiling hot springs, the more common bacteria, and eukarya, the domain that includes every single protist, fungus, plant, and animal on Earth. All of them. So, if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that our understanding of life isn't just a fixed list of names you have to memorize. No way. It's a living, breathing story of discovery. A map that we keep redrawing and refining every single time we invent a new tool or make a new discovery.
And that leaves us with a pretty awesome final thought. The 5-kingdom system was revolutionary, and the 3-domain system took us even deeper into life's history. But our technology is only getting better and better. It just makes you wonder, doesn't it? What new, undiscovered branches on this incredible tree of life are we going to find next?